Hello, adventurers, and welcome. My name is Ken. You can call me Roper. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about the various settings and variety of options that we have here along the sidebars of Foundry. I will be also going into a comprehensive guide in the next videos about importing tokens and maps, so if that's what you're looking for, just jump to the next guide. In this guide I'll be talking about the various different options you have here on your screen, what they mean, and how you can implement them in your game. Also how to increase some things like performance and stuff using the settings. So let's crack into it. On the left side of it here, we have a bar that you can't access. That is completely normal. That bar basically is your controls for using a map. We don't have a map in yet, so we can't actually use those tools. I will show you all of those tools in great detail when we get to map creation. Now, what we have here in the bottom is a player bar. There's a little arrow here. Right now, this is configured to just show the players that are connected, but if you click on the arrow, it'll show all the players in general who have an account created that you would have done in the previous video. If you right click the player, you use your configuration, it will show you that you can add a player avatar to your player itself rather than just their token. You can add a color, which corresponds on their dice and their ruler and things like that. And you can select a character. Now, select character is usually when we've created a token over here, we'll be able to assign it an owner. When this person, let's say Sylvie, for example, is an owner of a character, we can click that, click Save Configuration, and then it will say Sylvie and then their character name. I will show that off more in the future when we get to the characters section. What we also have here is you can ban and pull to scene. So if you have multiple scenes set up, so like we have a ton of scenes here, pretend, and then you open the first one or the second one, but you don't want all the players to go to it, what you can do is then click, right click and click pull to scene. Now, along the bottom, we have a macro bar. You can hide it if you don't want it by clicking this little arrow or click the folder just to open up the macro directory, which is where all your macros are saved. If we create a simple macro here, you can see that it sits here. And if we toggle this switch, you can see we have 5 different subcategories of macros that we can open. This is really useful if you want to set up things like, for example, heals, or if you want to set up something like weapons on one bar and heals on another, and even posting rules to chat on another. That's one that I have set up. There is a great GitHub that you can actually use. So if we go here, you could take a look. This is the FoundryVTT community for macros. Now here you've got things like 5e, you've got miscellaneous packs, all sorts of different ones for different variety of macro uses. You can even, if we go into 5e, you have feats and all sorts of things like sharpshooter. You've got rage, which is just a feature of the barbarian. What it does is you can click this macro and then it will remember that they're going to rage, and it'll just add their roll to their overall roll. When they do their full roll for rage, it actually implements all the information for that too. What I'll do here is I will show you a test macro. So if we edit this and type /r, that just means roll. Let's say 1d8, okay? We want to post this to chat. We don't want this to be a script right now. If you want to use any of the macros from the GitHub that I showed you, they would most likely be scripts. In this case, we're just going to roll a dice, so that's just a chat. We save the macro, we click it, and you can see it rolls 1d8. You see that? So, okay, there we go. Coincidentally got 2 7s. If you click on this folder, you can see that my new macro is here. You can even do things like name it, so dice roll. You can even add pictures to it if you want to. You can click here and just add any of these icons or any icon you want from your user data folders. And that's realistically it for macros. On the right-hand side, you can see that we have a bunch of tools here. So we have a little self roll, which is a public roll, private GM roll, blind GM roll, and self roll. What these all mean respectively is the public roll means that everybody at the table can see it. A private GM roll means that the player and the GM can both see it. A blind GM roll means that the player can't even see it, but they're rolling the die, only the GM can see it. Really useful if you want to intimidate people during death saving throws, by the way. And self roll just means that only you can see what it is. However, chat may see it as a series of question marks. Up along the top, we have this is our chat log here. This is the first option, of course. This is where if we talk, for example, you'll get your chats here with a little border around it that signifies the color that you've chosen over here. It will be there. You can absolutely do that in character or out of character. There are a ton of chat commands. If you go to the fist here, this is your combat tracker. So if we were to start a combat, begin combat. If we had a map up with a bunch of tokens, you can right click them, click join combat. They'll all appear here. Everybody rolls for initiative, and this will be your combat tractor effectively. It tells you whose turn is next. It tells you who's already gone, what round it's on. You can keep track of all sorts of things here. It's really, really useful. You can even add things like resources that you want to track, like HP, or for example, if you wanted to track their primary, secondary, or tertiary filters and stuff. So you can set that up on the sheets. I'm going to show you that in the token creation section when we get there. Skip defeated then also means that if anybody goes down in combat, you can jump over their token when you're clicking next down here in the bottom, which means that as a GM, you're not constantly getting bogged down or filtered by like all the tokens. You just click next, it'll tell you who's next, and then you just go. Scenes are the maps that you'll be playing on. So it's like when you're sitting at a table, you roll out your battle map. It is the same exact thing. You just create your scene here. You preload it if you want to so that everybody's ready, and then you activate the scene. Everybody jumps to the scene. You need to pre-populate this with your tokens, so unless you have it set up with some sort of module or something. Once you pull it in, they'll be able to see through their tokens vision and stuff. I'll show that when we get to the map making part of all of these videos anyway. The next thing is creating an actor. Now an actor is, let's just call this guy, we can call him John. Let's call him Reno. What we'll do is here, this is the character sheet. So I'm going to go over this when we're going through the character creation anyway. There's like hit points, hit dice, all sorts of things. It's a little bit complicated if you've never seen this before, but if you've played any D&D or anything like that before, you might be familiar with the sheet system. This is effectively it. Your inventory, your features, your spell book, even effects you may have active, and biography. That's completely normal, completely fine. We'll go over that when we're creating tokens. Items directory is very similar. So here you can create weapons, equipment, consumables like potions and stuff like that. Tools like toolkits and stuff. Loot, just general loot like gemstones and stuff like that. Classes, which is like the bard, the barbarian, so forth. You can create spells, features like feats, and backpacks, so containers and stuff. If you want me to go over any of these more detailed, I can absolutely do that. Just let me know in the comments, and I'll set up a video series for those as well. Here we have journals. Journals are pretty straightforward. So you just simply have a document that's a text document with just some whatever you want in there. You can show it to specific players, and it'll show it to all players if you click this. And you can also configure permissions so that perhaps, say, Laura is an observer, but Timmy doesn't know that it exists. Now we do that, and Timmy will never see that journal, but Laura knows that it's there. The next thing is a roll table. So these roll tables are pretty cool. So on this, you have formulas for example, if I click the plus here, I'll say hello, and I'll say goodbye. Now that's just a text formula, right? So let's jump to chat. We roll our table. Oh, sorry. You need to click this. Once you do this, you can put weights and stuff in. You click this, it'll populate to 1d2, and then you click roll because that's the formula. And then it randomly picked hello. We roll it again. Pick hello again. There you go. Goodbye. So it rolls this is effectively rolling a 1d2. But what's really useful for these is, for example, a wild magic surge table. You populate that with your 50 or whatever. They roll, like each of the weight would be 2, and then they roll it, and then it'll just randomly pick one. So it'll get a D100 effectively. It's the same idea. I will show these off in more detail anyway. Roll tables are really helpful and useful. So playlists, it's a very straightforward system. You can add your ambience, you can add your sound effects, you can add music, whatever you want. Everybody who's listening to Foundry will hear it. It's very useful, very good system in place. Used to be kind of laggy and a bit slow, but honestly they've put a lot of work into it in version 8, and it's absolutely amazing at the moment. My players love it. They'd love to tell me to turn it down, but they love it. So in the next section, we have compendiums. You may already have a few here from your rule set that you may have brought over from the last video that I set up. In this, we have things like monsters, we have starter heroes, stuff like that. So if I wanted to open a compendium, for example, you can see that I've got some random monsters here. Let's say the adult brass dragon. You can add pictures and do things by clicking on the pictures. You can click import. Do you see that? So that brings the adult brass dragon in, and now I've got this here. I can just drag it into my game. Happy days. You can also do things like duplicate it, configure permissions, that sort of thing. I'll go over this in more detail anyway. If you wanted to edit something, for example, I can't click on strength here. So let me open the adult brass dragon again. There we go. I can't edit the strength here, you see? But if I open this one, I can, right? So the reason being is that if I go back to my compendiums, there's a little padlock here next to them. You right click it, click edit lock. It warns you that of course people can edit them. If you don't want your players to see this, you can right click it and click toggle visibility. This will mean that your players no longer see it, but you can still edit it. So I could go to my little brass dragon again, change it to 24 or 25, 245, sure. And it will just do that for me. Finally, we have our settings section. So configure settings, I'm going to go over that now in a moment. Manage modules. If you had modules installed, they would appear here. I will do an entire module video about it, so we'll go through that as well. Edit world, that allows you to change information about the world in your start screen that we did before. User management, I showed you that in the last video. Return to setup is to go back to the main core setup page. Edit world allows you to change, just so that I can actually pull this up just in case it's important to you. This is the thing that we changed when we started the splash screen previously. You can just do that from here as well. Controls reference. This is a really quick handy guide that tells you all of the controls for your keyboard to do with Foundry. But it doesn't, oh, it does say it there, hotbar slot, so your macro slots, it also says it there. It's the same thing. This is all of the keyboard controls, everything that works with mouse, keyboard, that kind of thing. You'll get a good understanding of it when you definitely start playing and stuff. You'll see what the capabilities are. There's some really cool behind the scenes stuff. Documentation is just Foundry's documentation. It takes you to their website and shows you all of their core processes. You'll need to accept again like you did before. And it shows you all of their core processes, their guides, their like how to run proxy servers, like frameworks, libraries, their code, all of that stuff, tokens, tiles, walls, how all of that works. It's amazing. They have really comprehensive guides. A lot of this is community participation, so it's really, really useful and really good. Same with the community wikis. It's the same sort of thing. It'll take you there, show you all of the wiki information for Foundry, which is pretty good. Invitation links. Now, I'm not going to click on this, but if you click on it, it will... Oh, no, I can click on it. Actually, I'll just blur it out. So you get your local network. If you click it, it'll copy it. Your local network is the network that you use for yourself or anyone who's connected to your personal Wi-Fi or LAN connection. Here in your house, in your home, wherever you are, as long as they are with you, you can use local area network. It might be a bit faster if you do. The internet one is what you would give your players. For example, when I play with my group on Discord, I have an internet one. That's the bottom one there. You click on that, you send that to them. That might change weekly. You'll need to send them a new one every week because unless you've got a self-hosted server or something, your internet service provider is probably changing that every week. So that might change. So what we'll do is we'll jump into configure settings here at the top and we'll fly through some of this. And then I will go into another video about how to do tokens and all of that stuff as well. Permissions, that is, if you open this, that's the permissions tab that we were editing in the last video. And that basically allows you to, on the fly, change the permissions for each role. So if you accidentally did something for a player and you don't want to go into the whole user management section, you don't want to just go in there and open up a whole thing, shut down your server. If you don't want to do all that, you just go to open permissions here and you can control what their permissions are. Configure audio and video. I don't use WebRTC, but that basically means if you connect your webcam to Foundry and your microphone to Foundry, can you use those to communicate, or can your players use that to communicate with you? It's probably a pretty good system. I'm not sure. I haven't heard any complaints about it, but I use, like I said, I use Discord and stuff. That's what I generally do. Default token configuration. So if you open this, that tells you all of the default settings for every single token you create. So anytime you go into that section over here, create a new actor, this is what will be filled out automatically for you. Everything from, is the display name always there or only when you hover over your token when you put it on a map? Positions, lock rotation, so if the tokens turn, like which way do they turn? Do they have vision, yes or no? And if they do, is it dim vision? No. Like if it's a human or a human variant, then they can have vision, but they don't necessarily have any dim or bright vision. If they are, for example, a tiefling, I believe they would have dim vision, and if you were a warlock, you might have 120 feet of devil sight, so that would be bright vision, because dim vision generally sees in black and white, but bright vision can see in color. Sight angles, so this is pretty cool. If you want them to see fully around their token at 365 degrees, sight angle will, or 60 degrees, sorry, 360 degrees, it will, that will do it. Sight angles will do it. If you want to just have a cone of vision in front of them to make it really immersive, that, and it gets really, really crazy when you're playing in the dark and stuff. you set up the cone at whatever site you want. So that would be the way to do it for every single token. So you don't have to change it every single time you create a token. Dim light radius is if they have a torch or something. So let's say there's 15 foot of bright light and 15 further foot, making 30 total of dim light. You would put 15 here in bright light, and you would put 30 in dim, and then it would proceed out for you. Emission angle is the same as sight angle, except it's the emission of the light. So if they're using a lantern, for example, they're holding a lantern, it might just be a cone, but if they're using a torch, it might be a radius. So you can decide that. Light color means the color of the light. The color intensity is how bright that color is. The light animation type, you can have a variety of different ones. I may show all of this off when I'm setting up torches and lighting anyway. But this means that the light will become animated, added animated effects. The speed at which it's animated would be animation speed. The intensity is how big the impacts are. So if it's a torch and it's pulsing, if you have a low intensity, it might just flicker a little bit. But if you have a large intensity, it might burst out like quite large, which is pretty cool. Resources, display bars. This displays bars over or under the character. Their attributes, which one you would like to appear, like maybe their XP or their HP. Most people use HP and maybe some magic slots and stuff. There's a ton of different information you can add. You can add 2 bars with like all of this kind of information, which is quite extensive. So disable game canvas, that turns off the canvas in the background. If you've got a low-end machine, this is probably a really good resource saving tool. It's probably the best one because you don't really use your maps or anything. It just disables everything. You can re-enable it whenever you need to. Language preference, if you've downloaded a bunch of languages, you can activate whichever one you want here. This one will be English. Chat bubbles, so if you talk in chat here, if I was to say hello and I owned a token, the token itself would get a chat bubble above its head and say hello. And if you've got pan to token speakers set up, it will also pull the camera to that token so that they can steal a scene. Gets a little bit annoying when they're talking a lot in chat and they don't use out of character, but that's okay. Left click to release objects. Generally, you want this on. It just means that if you're holding a bunch of stuff or if you're targeting a bunch of stuff, you left click and it'll just kind of release all of that. It's pretty good. Frame rate, you can put that up to 60 for high-end machine. You can put it down as low as 10 for super low-end machines. 30 is usually pretty good for medium-end machines. Whichever is fine. Token drag vision. I usually leave this off because for tokens, when you move your token, you click and hold. What it means is, does their sight vision move with that? I like my characters to only be able to see when they've effectively moved theirs, so that if they're in a dungeon and they click and drag their character up and see around a corner and see a Minotaur standing there, they won't just like move their character back going, oh, didn't mean to go that far. You know, I don't want them to know that that's there. So if they choose to go up there, they choose, but I don't want them to have that vision until they place their token and it's set in stone. Light source animation. So I was talking about the flickering lights. That is the same thing. If you don't want them to do that, and some of the lights maybe automatically do, you just turn off the token vision, the light source animation, and it will stop that flickering and stuff. Zoom texture anti-aliasing, that's up to you. This isn't a server setting. This one would be a client setting. So it's kind of up to you. It just means when you zoom out really far, do the tokens still look smooth or they just start getting a little bit more jagged? That's the more you zoom in, the better they look. But I like having it ticked because honestly, it just looks nicer generally, but it does use a little bit more resources. So again, if you're on a lower end machine, that would increase performance. Animating roll tables, that's like I showed you when I opened up test here. So when I roll from the thing, we got our hello here. But when I did it, it goes tick, 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 tick. It bounced up and down. This is the animation. You can just turn that off and it'll just instantly pick and go from it. Cone template type, round or flat. So it depends on how you play, but if you've played D&D and stuff before, you'll know that certain spells perhaps have a cone that come out. So it's a triangular shape and it usually has a rounded end to it. If you are preferring more of a triangular shape, that triangular shape would be the flat one instead of the round. In system settings, Player's Handbook, Gritty Realism, or Epic Heroism are the rest variants. That means that Player's Handbook is 8 hours for a long rest, 1 hour for a short. Gritty Realism are 7 days for a long rest, and for a short rest it's 8 hours. And Epic Heroism is a long rest is 1 hour and a short rest is 1 minute. This is the rule system that the game system that we imported. That is part of the rules that this would have brought in. Another thing is diagonal movement. Does it, like the PHP says that it's 5 if you move forward diagonally or left or right, or vertically, sorry. Vertically, horizontally, and diagonally, sorry. DMG alternating means it's 10 if you go in a diagonal shape, and then I have no idea what this is. Proficiency variant. Are you using the DMG rules with the dice, or are you using the player's handbook version with +2, +3, +4, +5? This proficiency bonus is basically, if it's a set static thing, or if you're using random rolls for proficiency, basically they get an additional dice to their proficiency roll as opposed to just a set static thing as they level up. Dexterity tiebreaker means that, for example, if I was to roll a 12 and I had a 12 in dex, it would be 12.12 as my roll. But if someone else was to roll a 12 but they had a 15 in dex, it would be a 12.15, which means they would go ahead of me. I prefer to just roll a dice to compete with whoever else gets the same roll numbers, or just see where they end up randomly in Foundry and go with that. Experience tracking, you can disable this if you're using the milestone system. What it means is there's a bar at the top that has your experience bar. My players love it, so they love to see it. But if they're also playing with an XP based system, if they're playing milestone, I'd say it'd probably be really annoying to just have a random bar there, so you can turn it off. Collapse item cards in chat. What that means is if we go, let's go to compendiums for a second, take an item out. Let us pick a sword, shall we? So, what that means is if we take our sword here, and what we'll do is let's take Reno. Let me grab the sword again. Put that on Reno. It's in his inventory here. So if Reno was to roll an attack with his sword, you can see that a box pops up here. It's white because it's private if I did a self roll, but if I want to reveal to everyone, I can just right click it and do that. Where it says Greatsword, if I wanted to see what the Greatsword can do, I can click Greatsword and it'll tell me all of that. That is because the collapsed item cards in chat is ticked. If you want this to just come out with all the text already here, you can untick that, but for spells later on in the game, they get beefy. I rather just have the name, attack, and damage there, and then just click on it when I need to. Hello, polymorphing. This is a system where you can allow your players to drag, for example, a bat or a cat or lizard or whatever onto their token. Let's get real. If they're polymorphing, it's probably a T-Rex. But when they drag the token onto their character sheet, it will automatically change their token and their stats, so they can just open their sheet and they just have all the T-Rex stats or whatever. Use metric weight units. That's entirely up to you. That's just imperial or metric. It's entirely your deal. Critical damage. This is multiply modifiers and maximize dice. What that means is multiply modifiers means when you roll critical in a standard game of D&D with normal rules, you multiply the dice by 2. So if they were supposed to get 1d8, they'll get 2d8. But what it also means is you would normally add, say, your strength to a critical. So 1d8 plus 4, for example, if they had a high strength. So what it means is that multiplying modifiers would be 2d8 plus 8 on a critical. Maximizing the dice means that if they roll that 2d8, it's a guaranteed 16 plus their 8 extra from their strength, putting it 24 damage total, which means that getting a crit is max damage every time. That is dangerous if you're playing with a paladin who has smite, because they will max their smite damage and it is crazy. Rogues with their sneak damage too, it gets nutty, so proceed with caution. Module settings. When you have modules, they'll appear here. I'll go over that in another tutorial. Good stuff. I think that should be everything for now. At the top, you can see your general information and settings, like the Foundry virtual tabletop, what version it is, what system we're using. That's the D&D 5e that we downloaded from Atropos. How many active modules you have, stuff like that. What I will do is in the next video, I'll talk about how to create a token, what that means, and all the system information about tokens. After that, we'll also talk about maps. I would like to make a video about how to use something like Incarnate to make a big map, and some of the more stylized or specialized Dungeon Alchemist or Dungeon Draft programs as well. If there's anything else that you guys would like to see, feel free to let me know in the comments. If I'm going too fast or anything, these videos all have extensive subtitles on them, and on flyingorc.com I'm also putting up the written guides. So if you have any questions or anything, you can always refer to those, or simply just ask in the comments and I'll do my best to get back to you. However, if any of you see anything in the comments that you know the answer to, please feel free to help each other and always be nice and kind to each other too. If there's anything else that I can do, feel free to let me know. But until next time, take care.